Hello and welcome to this special episode of the Don't Give a Ruck podcast. As always, I'm your host Nathan Parker, and joining me on today's show is former Wales and All Blacks coach Sir Graham Henry. Before we begin though, I'd extremely appreciate it if you could subscribe to the channel and follow us on our social media sites, which can be found in the description section below. But for now, let's crack on with the programme, and as per the majority of our shows, Graham began by telling me about his early life in rugby. Enjoy.
Where did the love for rugby come from? Because I believe in your early days you were a cricketer, weren't you?
I played rugby and cricket. Had a love for sport really, and I played at school and had a little bit of success at school, and that fueled the enthusiasm. Then I became a physical education teacher. And so coaching sort of derived from that, if you like, and the love of the game. I used to love rugby. You know, I enjoyed the after-match function and the camaraderie of the team, and played probably 10 years of senior club football around New Zealand. And because I was a school teacher and a phys ed teacher, I got into coaching and really enjoyed rugby coaching. You had a wee bit more input as a rugby coach as opposed to a cricket coach, if that makes sense. And it went from there.
Could you almost marry the two, you know, the teaching and the coaching? Because, or was there ever a time where, you know, the teaching sort of seeped through onto the rugby field in your coaching?
Oh, coaching is an education, isn't it? It's rugby coaching is teaching, really. So there was a lot of parallels there. I just got into good environments where success and enjoyment and high standards were important, and I enjoyed that and those environments, and coached some good teams there, and went on from there really. Auckland Grammar School under John Graham was probably the pinnacle of all that. Like, he was an ex-All Black. Played number 7, played 20-odd test matches, captained the All Blacks in a few tests. Like, he was a bit of a mentor for me. Not a bit. He was a mentor for me. And I enjoyed his mentoringship and his company. And so I taught at his school at Auckland Grammar School. He was the school headmaster. And that was a good environment to learn.
And of course, the 90s was an amazing decade for yourself, coaching an unbelievable Auckland side, I believe, to 4 championships in a row. And then I think you won 2 Super 12 trophies with the Blues. How special were those times, you know, giving up the teaching and then going into a full-time coaching?
The game went professional here in 96. So I was coaching Auckland and running a school at the same time, Kelston Boys High School. And that was good. It was pretty busy, to be fair. But the pressures of the rugby decreased the pressures of the headmaster's job, and vice versa. So it was a good combination. Again, some quality players, quality team. And I happened to be in the coaching situation, which was, again, a real big positive, because I was still learning. You're always learning. And so I had guys like Sean Fitzpatrick and Zinzan Brook and Carlos Spencer, and I could go on and on, who were pretty fantastic people and rugby players, and it was just a great environment to be involved in.
Did New Zealand ever come calling at all in the late 90s?
No, that's why I ended up with you guys, Nathan.
Yeah, I know that, but you know, you'd won 4 championships in a row and won 2 Super 12s. Well, was there ever speculation about you coaching New Zealand before you come to Wales?
I didn't notice any speculation. I actually talked to New Zealand Rugby at the time, and they weren't that encouraging. And so that's why I thought, well, I was ambitious, probably over ambitious, and I wanted to coach international rugby, and Wales knocked on the door, and that was, you know, a great privilege to be asked. And that's why I finished up in Wales in 1998. And you know, I look back on that time in Wales as a pretty remarkable period of your life. Ray and I really enjoyed it. We had a fabulous time.
And of course, Raywin, I believe she coached the Welsh netball team as well.
Yeah. No, she went over there. Like she started coaching club netball in Cardiff, and then they asked her to coach the national side, and she coached them for probably 3 or 4 years, and went to a Commonwealth Games and a World Cup. She looks back on that with very fond memories.
And
she's still in touch with a lot of the girls she coached, actually.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, how sport can bring people together. I had your good friend Steve Hansen on last week, and I'll ask you the same question I asked him. What was the biggest learning curve for you coming over to the Northern Hemisphere?
I think you learn about yourself. I don't know what Steve had to say, but you're outside your comfort zone. You know nobody when you get there, and you've got to start from scratch again, really. But I think the biggest thing is that I was privileged enough to go through that experience, and with the Lions, and I learned a huge amount about myself. And later on in rugby career and life, it was a positive.
And I think you're quoted as saying that you learned a lot, but you also went through a lot of pain during your time over here. What did you mean by that?
There's nothing derogatory there. I've only got good thoughts and good memories about Wales. It's just that I was coaching the Lions in 2001 and Wales at the same time. I thought I could handle it. I thought I was bulletproof, and it proved I wasn't. So that touch of arrogance put my head on the block, and that got me into trouble. So, if you had that time again, perhaps you wouldn't have coached the Lions. But as you said before, New Zealand Rugby didn't recognise me as a potential All Black coach in the 90s, and that was an opportunity to show that I could try and do the job. So it was really self-inflicted pain rather than the Welsh inflicting pain on me, Nathan. Just my arrogance of taking on too much. Also, I tried to do it by myself, and I learned very quickly that this was a group deal. This was a team deal rather than a coach deal. That everybody had to be involved and producing something special. And from my upbringing, I hadn't learned that yet, and I learned very quickly. And that was a major change, apart from handling the difficulty, handling the depression, and getting through that and learning from that. But it was a great learning curve for coaching for me. It wasn't about me. I learned it wasn't about me, Nathan, which is only took me 30 years to work that out, Yeah. It was about the team and working together and using the intellectual property of the group to produce a higher standard. And so that was the two big learning curves.
Yeah. And we helped guide Wales to 11 wins in a row, which was, pretty sensational at the time. And, confidence was high going into that 99 World Cup. But one of the games that really stands out, I think I was only 3 at the time in 1999 when we come up against the old enemy at Wembley against England. And Neil Jenkins obviously kicked the kick in front of the post. For us as Welsh people, that game gets brought up every single year for a Wales game because it's the one that stands out the most. What are your memories of that day?
I could talk for hours. I honestly could talk for hours about that, because we played at Wembley because the Millennium Stadium was being built. So it was Wembley was our home ground. And I can remember walking around the edge of the ground prior to the fixture and Tom Jones singing in the middle. Yeah. He was singing Delilah, and the atmosphere, you could cut it with a knife, it was just electric. And it's one of the greatest rugby tests I've ever been involved in. I guess it was great because we beat the English, but it was a great occasion. It was 80,000 people. equal number of Welsh and English. So there was a bit of tension between the two, obviously. There always is. And we finished up winning against the odds. And people did things on that day which they have never done before, you know. Scott Cornell passed the ball.
Yeah.
I hope he's watching this. And Scotty Jenkins danced to score that final try. Well, he's never danced before. And, you know, Jenks his goal kicking that day was just remarkable. It was like he had the ball in a cannon and he was shooting it from all over the park. So he was an incredible goal kicker.
Yeah.
And a very, very good player. Like, I really enjoyed being involved with Jenks. So, you know, I don't know what game that was in the sequence of 11. I think the following week we beat the French, or a couple of weeks later, for the first time in 20 odd years in Paris. So they were remarkable times, and I look back on those times it was just remarkable, enjoyable, fantastic. All of, you know, you can't speak highly enough of those experiences.
And obviously your good work with Wales, as you mentioned earlier, paved the way for you to become the Lions head coach. I know you sort of briefly talked about it there, but you know, there's plenty of interviews that you've had in the past, and you've been quoted as saying, "I should never have taken the job." Do you still feel that way today?
You know, it's done.
Yeah.
And if I hadn't taken the job, perhaps I'd still be in Wales. And that's not a negative, but it just pushed me over the top, pushed me over the edge. And the learning from that was remarkable. You know, the support of Rowan and a few mates, David Pickering, for example, who you'll know, and some people back here was fantastic. And, you know, I just learned a lot. And I think everybody has mental well-being challenges. I think it's just become a reality these days that, you know, I think we probably didn't know we had them in the prior.
Yeah. And
now everybody understands that mental wellness is just as important as physical wellness. And so I went through that then and had some ways of coping from that. I learned how to cope with it.
Yeah.
And so that was, when I got the All Blacks, that was a good thing to be able to have, you know, have that knowledge, have those skills to keep you on the straight and narrow and keep me positive mentally.
As we know, your time in Wales came to an end after a heavy loss at Lansdowne Road. Does a bit of Wales still live within you?
Oh, for sure. For sure. No, we loved it. You know, we look back on those times with very fond memories. As I said before, we had a lot of good mates. We had a lot of fun with those good mates. We almost learned how to sing, still struggling. And we had some important jobs to do, which with Rowan doing the netball and me doing the rugby, we had very important jobs to do. So it was very fulfilling. And we've been back many times. Been back to Wales many times since we left. We still see those people who we were close to. And Rowan's on the phone to some of her mates every week. Men are not quite the same. You know, I contact Pickering on a regular basis, but always love his company and others. So I can't speak highly enough of our time in Wales. We just loved it and loved the people and loved the country, and we talk about it a lot.
Of course, the following December, after I think New Zealand got knocked out of the World Cup in 2003 against Australia, I believe you were in the stadium that day when they got knocked out in Sydney.
I was, and Rowan and I, we were here leading a tour group of New Zealanders to the Rugby World Cup in Australia, And I was sitting there, and a guy turned around to me and said, "You'll be the next All Black coach." And I looked at him, and it didn't even enter my mind, to be frank. And I said, "Well, that's a long shot." But there we are.
And did you know there was a bit of a drinking culture within the All Blacks at that time? Because I've seen a few interviews that you've done where, you couldn't believe it.
Oh, it wasn't so much, well, perhaps. Let's not soft slope this. No, it was just, I don't mind a drink myself, believe it or not, Nathan. It wasn't so much guys having a beer after the game. It was the court session mentality and people being forced to drink and the results of that, which weren't pretty. Both management and players. And that just led to problems later on, as you could appreciate. And so when I got the job in 2004, the All Black coaching job, we had a court session in Johannesburg after the Tri Nations had been finished. And that, as far as I know, that's been the last court session the All Blacks have ever had. So it was just the way things were done. And the Welsh people and Welsh rugby people would understand totally. I'm sure there's been the odd court session in the Principality.
Yeah, definitely.
And maybe there still is. But it wasn't appropriate for a professional rugby team to be doing that sort of thing. Enjoying themselves, having a beer if they wish to, fine. But compulsory drinking, didn't fit. Didn't fit the culture, didn't fit professionalism, didn't fit the All Blacks, doesn't fit international sport.
Well, you soon quickly changed the culture, and you come up against the Lions then in 2005. Was there a weird experience coming up against the Lions, having coached them 4 years earlier, or was it just a chance for you to prove a point once more?
Oh, I don't think there was any point proving going on. We just wanted to play well, and it was a pretty young All Black team. And Sir Clive, he may not have been Sir Clive then, but maybe he was, I'm not sure. I was coaching them, and we had a positive relationship. He should have coached the 201 side, quite frankly, and I've said that many times. But, just we played well. We probably got the rub of the green a wee bit and had a good series.
And I think I was 9 years old when Dan Carter tore Lions a new one in the second test. Is that one of the best individual performances that you've seen as an All Blacks coach?
Oh yeah. Like, he was just fabulous, wasn't he? Like, he played out of his skin. He was in the zone, kicked goals, scored try, ran the ship. And at that stage, 2005, I'm not sure what age Dan would be, probably 23, 24 maybe. He was in the peak of his powers. He was a fantastic footy player.
And it almost looked like you were riding on a crest of a wave going into the 2007 World Cup. And I believe you'd won 19 out of 20 tests before the World Cup in 2007. Do you still sort of revisit that France game in your memory today? Who's going to come? I'm sorry.
No. It took a while to get over it. But we just weren't strong enough mentally on that particular day to handle that particular game. And, again, adversity, we probably, as you say, we won 19 out of 20 tests leading into that. I think we beat the French in Lyon by 50 points. Yeah. 3 months prior. This is the same team. We probably got ahead of ourselves, Nathan. We probably thinking semi-final, final. And we didn't handle the pressures of the game. And so from that adversity, we built a stronger mental skills program, and which was great going forward. We were lucky enough to survive. Smithy and Steve and myself were lucky enough to survive, and we were able to put that into action, which resulted in probably 2 World Cups in 2011 and 2015.
And is it true you religiously watched that game after the aftermath of the game? You know, a few. Well, I've heard it 100 times you watched it, but that's probably a bit embellished. But did you religiously watch the game over and over again?
No, I had to write a report. And have you read the book, Nathan?
Have you read the book? No, sorry.
You should read the book, mate. Huh? There's 2 chapters about that game, and they were written when I watched the game, because I had to write a report for New Zealand Rugby, which was part of the deal. Every year you have to write a report, and obviously the World Cup in 2007, for the 2007 year, was the pinnacle, and there was a lot written about that game. What I wrote in the report for New Zealand Rugby is exactly what's in the book.
I'll have to read the book. There was a chorus of choker headlines in the papers afterwards, and you know, I think it was quite personal towards you as well, wasn't it, after the game?
Well, I don't know about your side of the world, because we came back obviously pretty quickly after the quarter-final, but it was pretty heavy in New Zealand. In fact, Rowan and I got out of New Zealand for a wee while so we could have a bit of space. So we went to Australia, went to a place called Hervey Bay in Australia, and spent a week or so there, and that's where I wrote the report. So, yeah, no, I can understand there's going to be some criticism. It just required a wee bit of balance probably, but let's not get into that. That's the way it was, and as I say, we were lucky enough to be reappointed, and we were lucky enough to be able to resurrect that in the next 2 World Cups.
And as you just mentioned, you got another chance, another crack at the New Zealand job a few months later. I think you were up against Robbie Deans for the job. But I think everybody knows by then he'd already taken the Australian job, which was quite a weird one. Can you remember how your interview went?
Badly,
yeah. You got the job.
Yeah, badly. We went out, Rowan and I went out for dinner that night in Wellington, which was where the headquarters of New Zealand Rugby is. And I said to her, I think I'll be looking for another job. And Steve Hansen and Wayne Smith rang me, or I rang them and said, look, boys, I don't think it was very positive. And you could have knocked me over with a feather. I went into the New Zealand Rugby Union headquarters the next morning. We had a meeting time to be there, and they offered me the job again. I was flabbergasted and delighted.
Yeah. Well, if you didn't get the New Zealand job, there's always there would have been a place in Wales for you after Gareth Jenkins lost his job. But you decided to stick with Steve Hansen and Wayne Smith. And I saw somewhere the 3 of you were called the 3 wise men of New Zealand rugby.
I were called other things as well, to be fair. But no, it was a good team. We had a fantastic management group. There were some really strong people in that group. It wasn't just about us. And we had McCaw and Carter and a leadership group which was very potent, and together we got the job done.
What did you do differently I think you were only given a 2-year contract, I believe, after the 07. So was there a lot of pressure? Was there more pressure on you going into the 2011 World Cup than it was the World Cup before?
You don't think about it, quite frankly. All you're thinking about is how do you get this team to play better. And you're not at the back of your mind, I might lose my contract, I didn't think about it. So perhaps I was lucky. I was a bit older, and it was just something I loved doing. The contract was immaterial, really. It was just being involved and trying to help a team fulfill its potential. And that's stimulating to have a situation that's your job, that you're working with a group of people to produce something that you're all proud of and the nation's proud of. It's a very rare opportunity, and not too many people get that opportunity, and I felt very privileged to be able to do that.
And well, I think people think it was plain sailing after the 2007 World Cup going into 2011. But there was a few losses to the Wallabies. I think you lost at home to South Africa and France in the space of a year. Do you have to sort of go through a little bit of heartache to sort of learn about your side going into that 2011 World Cup?
Oh, we were rebuilding a bit. We'd lost a few players, and we had some real weaknesses in some positions, and it just took a wee bit of time to get through that and develop players. The rules also changed. The big rule was the refereeing at the tackle area, and during it's hard for me to remember, but probably around about 28, 29 was a very difficult game to play. People killing the ball at the tackle area, and no continuity. And we were an athletic continuity side rather than a set piece based side that kicked for position and kicked for penalties. And I'm not being critical; it's just different ways of playing the game. And we were much more a continuity side that used the ball and kept the ball in their hands. And it was very difficult with how the game was refereed at the tackle. They changed that, which helped us. They became stricter on how making the ball available, not allowing the opposition to kill it, all that sort of stuff, and that helped us. And we got better in 210 and managed to smash the French 8-7 and 2-11 in the final.
But prior to the final against France, you had a bout of sickness with the fly halves. They were dropping like flies. You had Colin Slade, Aaron Cruden, of course, Dan Carter, and then you've got to call up Stephen Donald, who I believe was fishing at the time.
Yeah, this story's probably getting old hat and boring for people, but no, we were lucky. We had some good support on the mental skills program and the mental strength program. So we were in pretty good shape upstairs, but we had a lot of problems with injury. Richie McCaw played with a broken metatarsal for the 3 final games. How he did that, I got no idea. And Dan Carter was out of the tournament before the final started he ripped the adductor tendon off the bone. And then Slade, who was the second fly half 10 in the group, he did the same thing in the quarter final. Cruden came in and replaced Carter, and he was just a kid. He's still in nappies really. Like he was 20, I think. Being a fly half in a World Cup and you're 20-year-old, talented, good man, good student of the game, but very young and inexperienced. And so we were left with him and nobody else. And that's when Steve Donald came in. He was white baiting, which is a little delicacy, fish delicacy. Hadn't trained for months. Looked like it, and but an extraordinarily good team guy and bright about the game. And he came in and after having played for the All Blacks for 2 years and finished up kicking the winning goal, and he went from 0 to hero in 30 minutes. He kicked the winning goal. There's been a movie made of him. He's written a book. He could be the next Prime Minister of New Zealand.
But I remember his shirt didn't even fit him, did it? How tense were those final 20 minutes? Because I think that the camera kept panning at you and the coaching staff in the box, and you look quite tense going into the last 20.
Well, there's no reason for the tenseness, was there?
No.
It was tense, all right. We got beaten in 2-7. We had no excuses. We'd done everything we could. We're just fortunate, I think. We were unfortunate probably in 2-7. We probably had the little man on our shoulder in 2-11 and managed to do the job. But you're sitting in the box there with 20 minutes to go and you do think, hell, if we lose this game, what am I going to do? Can I live in this country? So there was a wee bit of tension for sure. But at the end of the day, we got through, and that's why you're talking to me right now, Nathan.
Yeah, exactly. It would have been lovely for a Wales-New Zealand final. Well, for us anyway, and it would have been nice for you to play against them in the final. I think it would have been quite a close game. What do you think?
Yeah, as I say, it's hard to think back all that time. It's a long time ago now, almost 10 years. No, the Welsh, if I remember rightly, had somebody red carded. The captain, was it?
Sam Warburton, yeah. Don't remind me.
Sam got red carded, which was, which was just left a bad taste, looking back in 2-7, there's probably some similarities. Let's not go into that too deeply. Left a bad taste, but they were a great side, very good side, and it would have been a marvellous occasion if that had occurred, but that wasn't the reality, which was disappointing.
And I think I saw a picture of you and Raywin embracing each other after the final whistle. What were the emotions like for you after the final whistle? Was it more of a, that you were finally at peace?
Yeah, I was finally at peace. Just seeing her face was remarkable. It was very emotional, actually. Very emotional time, but just a feeling of thank goodness for that, because the opposite result was not it wasn't worth thinking about. So there was just pure relief, and you put yourself through these things, and you don't think your family's going to be affected in any way. Well, not too much anyway, and they are. It's very difficult for them, and you've got some control because at least you're involved with the team, and you're meant to be the coach, and you're meant to be doing the business. They've got no control. All they can do is hope it's going to work out okay, and seeing her face was just makes me emotional now.
Yeah.
It's an emotional time. It's just a time of thank goodness, huge relief, and it just feels so peaceful. That was after 100 and something test matches, the All Blacks, 104 or something, I'm not sure. And 37, I think, for Wales and 3 with the Lions. So it takes a long, it's 140 odd test matches, and they probably knock you around a bit. That's over a 12-year period. And I had made my mind up that I was finishing. And so it was just a feeling of peace and thank goodness. And we've won a World Cup, and we haven't done that for 24 years, the country. And to be involved with a great group of young men was just fantastic. And the relief for the family, the relief for Raywin was obvious. And I didn't realise probably as much as I should have how much stress they were under. That's part of the growing up process, I suppose.
Yeah, but it's hard to see, isn't it, when you're almost in that bubble, isn't it?
Yeah, you're just totally focused on trying to do the best job you can.
And advisory roles with, I believe, Argentina, Leinster, and as recently as Canada followed. Are you fully retired now from all rugby?
No, not really. I still help the Auckland team a wee bit. I'm actually going there today. So I'm the facilitator of the leadership group for the Auckland Mitre 10 team, not the Blues, the Mitre 10 team. And that's good competition in New Zealand. It produces a lot of quality players that go on to be full-time professional players. And so that's a good involvement. I do a lot of speaking at clubs and just try and support the game as much as I can.
And on the All Blacks today, drawing the first game for Ian Foster last week, and then obviously a fairly comfortable win on the weekend. How does this All Black side differ to the one that you coached and nurtured?
I think they're always getting better, I think rugby's always getting better. The players are better prepared because we know more about how to do that. So science has got a lot to do with that. And I would think this All Black team, which is a fairly young side now, will develop into a pretty powerful unit, I would imagine. They hadn't played for quite a long time before the first test against the Wallabies, and they would have been disappointed with their performance there. And so their attitude obviously got a lot harder, a lot more determined, and they'd had a game. They hadn't And you need football. You just can't go out and play your best without a build-up. So hopefully they're on the journey and to greater heights.
And finally, Graham, before we go, is it okay if we finish with a quick fire round?
Yeah.
Right. Firstly, who's the best player that you've coached? I
think McCaw, Richie McCaw. He probably wasn't the greatest athlete, but his mind was superb. He was extremely focused and determined, and he had a marvelous influence on the rest of the players he played with.
Best player you've come up against?
Oh, that's very difficult to name. I think Victor Matfield was a bit of a thorn in our side for quite a long time. Now, he's a superb line-out player for the Bulls and for South Africa. No, he would be up there. There's probably a lot of others I could name, but he was very influential in Springbok rugby, I thought.
Best match you've been involved in as coach?
Best match I've been involved in as coach? 8-7 versus the French, 2-11, Rugby World Cup final. Last one, must be. Wales versus England, Wembley, 1999, 32-31. Wales versus France, 1999, Paris, 33-32. Those games were remarkable. It's
been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, mate.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. Bye.